Spring practice is officially in the books, so now it's time to recap and see what questions were answered and what questions still remain. There's a couple in there that I don't think you're going to like, but let me explain. Locked On Gamecocks starts right now.
You are Locked On Gamecocks, your daily podcast on the South Carolina Gamecocks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, guys? I'm Chris Marler, host of the Locked On Gamecocks podcast, part of the Locked On Sports Podcast Network, now the #1 sports podcast network in America, and we have you to thank for that, but we have FanDuel to thank for today's episode. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5 and get $250 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. Head to FanDuel.com to get started. All right, so we talked about this yesterday. It was kind of a weird, like a fizzling out of spring practice, just from my own opinion, because you didn't have a traditional game, which was totally fine and normal. I didn't have a problem with that. But you had this big recruiting weekend. I had tons of recruits in town. You've been very active in getting kids on campus and recruiting, not just this upcoming class, but for several years in the future as well, more so than I've ever seen. But it ends, obviously, with having one commit flip to Florida and then no commits, that weekend, which, again, not a big deal, just kind of a fizzling out of a fall. But there were so many things that were positive from spring camp, and there was a lot of stuff that I think that we went into spring practice with saying, okay, here's what's most glaring to me. Here's what is like the biggest questions that I need answered, and here's the stuff that I'm most excited about, concerned about, and everything in between. So today's episode, we're going to talk about the 3 biggest things that we have like confirmation on that we feel confident in that we saw in spring practice moving forward. So what 3 things we learned that we feel confident in moving forward? I'm not explaining it well. But then also 3 questions I think that still remain. Now, the plan is to do both of those in this one episode. Every time I try to do that, I usually go way long and I'm too long-winded. So we end up just doing one of those. We'll try to get through it, but here we go. All right. So 3 things. This doesn't mean they're the only 3 things. There's a lot of things that were answered during this spring practice. The questions for me specifically that I was most intrigued about and most excited about, outside of like the very obvious stuff with Sellers in a new system and all the new coaches and blah, blah, blah. For me, it was, is this roster and this team going to return more to form of like 2024? And are they going to look different? Because I looked at what they looked like going into spring practice this year versus last year. And there were some guys last year, but they were all really young, no experience. And then also, like in some cases, not as talented as some of the guys that they brought in this year. So sometimes you need a year in the system, whatever. One of the things I wanted to see was, is this freshman class, along with the freshman class from last year and all the other people you brought in from the portal with 25 new guys, is that going to raise the floor in terms of how talented and special this team can be, but especially how talented this team can be? Because sometimes, like a year ago, there weren't a ton of freshmen that were necessarily, I thought you'd have a ton of freshman receivers pushing for playing time. We just didn't see any of that. With the class that you brought in, you specifically brought them in at some positions of need that it showed immediately. So the floor of this team in 2026, in my opinion, looks so much more similar to the one in 2024. It's younger than that one, right? You don't have guys that are 5th and 6th year, players that you've had for years and years and have been 3-year starters like Tonka and all that kind of stuff. But the floor has been raised significantly, especially from a season ago. And some of the guys that you're able to bring in, guys like Noah Clark and then Jazavian Currents, and just like off the top of my head, some of those guys on defense, right? We knew Julian Walker was going to be special and contribute early. But the other guys at other positions that you really need to have an impact not only came in and contributed from a depth standpoint, but it felt like the list that you had of which freshmen are going to contribute this year, each practice that went on, it felt like that list got longer and longer. It just like, and that's not because, oh my gosh, no, they were really highly ranked recruit. They're going to be great. It is saw them in practice against grown-ass men, against all, the returning players, all that kind of stuff. They were as good, if not better. They can hold their own. and they are going to be able to contribute for this team right away, which is like, this isn't the 60s and 70s when it's like, well, freshmen can't play until whatever time. I mean, this is why you recruit guys like that. And I think I'm speculating here. I think that when you are recruiting someone, you hope that they can play and be as productive as possible as early as possible. But I don't think that the sense of urgency in the recruiting cycle from last year was anywhere close to what Shane Beamer and the staff had with a sense of urgency this year. They went out and got guys that they needed to fit a specific box that they could check and they could come in right away. Not projects, nothing like that. We need answers right now. And one of the biggest answers they got in spring practice this year is the freshmen, especially the freshmen, and a lot of the newcomers have raised the floor of this team. Here's the other one I got. And this one, I don't feel like it's hokey. It's just kind of, like, of course it is. The coaching changes that you made, it feels like, I don't know how much better they're going to be technically. I don't know how much better the offensive line is going to be, or the running backs, or outside linebackers and rush ends. I don't know the answers to that. We haven't seen them play a game yet. I'm hoping that they, Sterling Lucas was really good, but I'm hoping that we can have improvement across the board. The one thing that I feel like has been missing from this program, and you got a little bit with Sean Elliott, there's not a lot of other Sean Elliott's like on this staff. Like Clayton White is not a very animated guy, right? I mean, there's not a lot of other people on this staff that are this loud and like, constant energy and upbeat and stuff like that. Like Mike Shula definitely wasn't, but the guys that you have brought in, it does feel like it's this very like refreshed breath of fresh air. Like starting over with like a positive, clean slate. It just feels like there's more enthusiasm, there's more energy, a little bit more focus. Things seem like a lot crisper the way they went about stuff. And I think also with Kendal Briles coming in, a lot of that has to do with how impactful his coaching style is to not just his position, not just his offense, but the entire team. And remember, I did a show on this. We referenced what Lane Kiffin said, which is like when you hire a guy like Kendal Briles, like that is going to change the shape of almost everything you do in a positive way, because the way he is going to script his offense, the way he's going to script practices and all that kind of stuff is going to be way more up tempo, way more volume in terms of reps and quality reps. And that was the other thing too, is it's fine to go through spring and make sure, we have practice today. We did our drills, blah, blah, blah. We had some scrimmages. Like, and I'm not saying go through the motions, but like there's only so much that you can change before you take another 2 or 3 month break, like with team activities until you come back for fall camp. But the way that they have come in right away and kind of made this entire air about the program seem like it is much more aligned and much more focused on winning games. Like not saying that last staff wasn't. It just feels like this staff they kind of get it in terms of, hey, you know what? Like, we're not going to come out here and just be like buttoned up and quiet and business as usual or whatever. We're going to come out here and get better every day. We're going to do that by getting as many valuable reps in as possible every single day at every single position. And they have done that across the board. But the energy that Briles, I think, brought in especially has been like a trickle-down effect. And everyone else, Drayton, obviously, like I said, with Sean Elliott, Clements has been great. It feels like there is the changes that you need. They were necessary just because of how bad those position units had kind of failed from last year. But they feel like they have done a world of change and a world of difference from where you were a year ago. All right. Here's the last one. And it kind of is piggybacking off the first one. But the third thing that I feel most confident in that we've confirmed moving on from spring practice is that there's substance to this belief in this team this year. That doesn't mean they're going to win a national championship or go to the playoff or whatever, but there's way more tangible substance in believing in this year's team than in comparison to last year. Because last year it felt like, well, yeah, they'll figure it out. And I know they lost a lot, but they got, so-and-so returning and LaNorris and they're top 15. It just kind of felt like, no, like I can't explain why like this player is going to be so much better than the guy that just got drafted, but it'll work out. It feels like the focus and effort into building this roster not just from having some good guys. Last year, you had some good players. Last year, you had 4 or 5 really good college football players, and a couple of those are probably going to play in the NFL at a high level. It was a staggering drop-off from the year before. Staggering. And this year, it feels like, I've said this over and over, the roster is so much more similar the way it's been constructed to 2024. But more importantly is the work that this staff and like Darren Usher and like, you know, from recruiting and director of player personnel standpoint, the way they have built this, there's so much more talent, right, in general, but there's way more depth. It feels like in a lot of places across the board, you know, you had a guy that, like, yeah, that he'll be serviceable. It feels like now this year you've got several guys in the 1 and 2 deep that, you know, could very well be the best player at their position maybe a season ago. That's just how I feel. Like, I know a lot of them are returning players, but I think with the difference between this year and last year, it feels like you're not going to have guys disappear like Mazio Bennett. You're not going to sit here and say, well, hopefully Nick Harbor can learn the position and turn things, like, you know, become everything we hoped he would be in his first year of playing football full time. Because if he doesn't, I don't know who's behind him, because for the most part last year, everyone disappeared at times. So I don't think you're going to have a situation where if this one guy can't figure it out for us, if LaNorris Sellers can't be Superman every week and can't figure it out for us, we're screwed. I mean, like, and that's how it was every single week last year. And I think that you look at the way that this year's team is made up and the way that this year's roster has been put together. I mean, there's names. I was going through the roster last night. There's names on the 2 deep and sometimes 3 deep in positions like defensive line that I forgot about from 2 months ago. I was like, oh yeah, I forgot about that guy. Like another guy they brought in from the portal, or like another former top 300 recruit. Like, there's just so many good players that I think in the past would have been like, I don't want to say your standouts. They would have been the guys that you were depending on being your standouts, though. Like you would have, if it didn't work out with them, you were going to be in trouble. And we've seen that happen with South Carolina before. It feels very much now like across the board. I mean, you tell me a position you don't think that they are quality depth in at the 2 deep. Maybe tight end. I mean, that depends on how Mike Tyler is, but he's also just one most improved player on offense. So maybe I'll get better there. I also don't think that if your tight ends aren't, I don't need South Carolina to have Brock Bowers out there. I mean, we talked so much about the offensive line, but I mean, you think about the secondary and how much talent they have there and what they brought in there. And like, that's like the least concern you will ever have about a roster or a unit on this roster because of how good they consistently are. I mean, maybe there's not as much depth as you want from linebacker, but you return all 3 starters. So I just feel like there's so many positives. And here's the bigger thing too, because I know that like you could say all this stuff and it kind of feels like looking back at last year, like maybe it was more hope in wanting to believe that all this stuff was going to work out and they were going to be great versus, yeah, you know what, like this could fall off or go off the rails negatively if this, a couple things go wrong. It feels like this year that's not the case. It does not feel like that's the case this year. And I know a lot of you are tired of hearing it. I know a lot of you are tired of having to get back up on the horse and say, no, man, I've been watching this for 40 years. We're not going to be, it's the same thing every year. And there's probably going to be a moment in this season where you feel that way again and deservingly so. Like, you're valid in that. But I'm not saying they're going to go win a national title. I don't see that. I don't see them having a national championship capable or caliber team. If something clicks, like it miraculously clicked in the last 6 games of 2024, then maybe they can go on a run. I don't know. But what I feel like when I look at this team, some of you aren't going to like hearing this because as well as I do, there's usually a ceiling over this team and this program. But this is different than last year. And I'm just letting you know. So because you're not going to tell it to yourself. It is okay to believe in this team because this team and this roster deserves to be believed in way more than the one a season ago. And I wish that I could go back in time and just put a muzzle over some of the overly confident things that I was saying. But you just compare from last spring and last offseason up until the season versus this, what we've seen so far through the first 3.5 months of the season or of the offseason. You guys all know just as well as I do from what you kept up with on social media or you heard here or read about or whatever. It all does look different. It looks very different from this year versus last year. So it is okay. It is okay to believe and have some hope in this team. I like it may come back to bite us and haunt us. It usually does, but I'm telling you right now, it is okay to believe in this team, and there's reason to do so. All right. We are going to take a quick break. Before we do, I'm going to give us a shout out here to our friends at FanDuel. The NBA playoffs are here where every possession matters, every matchup is magnified, and every game can swing a series. Right now, FanDuel is giving new customers a great way to get on the action. Here's what I like most about it. Betting on the NBA playoffs is awesome because it's like craps. There's so much action everywhere. You can have player props, over-unders. There's a bazillion first-round games. Like it'll go on like that for at least a month. It is so much fun, even if you don't like the NBA, because I don't like the NBA, but I do love getting on FanDuel and making a couple wagers. So head to FanDuel.com to get started. Remember, all you have to do is place a $5 bet, and if it wins, you get $250 in bonus bets as soon as that happens. FanDuel, play your game. Now, those are the big picture things that I feel most confident in. Okay. And again, what we'll do on episodes coming up this week is we'll talk about these specific players, roster, position units, all that kind of stuff. But I wanted to go big picture of what we feel most confident in. So now the other side of that, what do you feel least confident in? And that, or maybe not least confident, but what do you still feel like there are question marks about? And I think there are several, and I think it's very fair that this team should be a little bit under a microscope until they are able to prove that they are above what happened last year and not take a massive step back. I've said all along, I think that this team, the ceiling and floor is between 6 and 10 wins in the regular season. I don't see them winning less than 6. They could win more than 10. It's going to be very difficult in a season where you play 9 conference games. But the things that I think you still have valid questions about right off the bat, we saw a lot of positive stuff from LaNorris Sellers and Kendal Briles in practice. All the quotes they had in the pressers, they were great. They said everything you wanted them to say to make you feel warm inside and feel good, and everything's going to be great. We're all going to live forever. But you still have to see it on the field. And usually with a situation like this, I mean, even in some of the past years under Briles, it took a couple of games to get to where, okay, like we've had actual game action. This is like the third offensive coordinator or play caller that LaNorris has had since he's been at South Carolina. So I feel like this is one of the best, probably the best one that he's had. It is very different, the style and schematic, just like philosophy that he has in comparison to some of the other guys that LaNorris has been under. But I do think there will probably be some growing pains and some hiccups along the way at some point. And LaNorris also is still a player that's, you saw it last year at times, as great as he is, there are times when he does something on the field, you're like, oh my God, I can't, jaw drop. There's 3 people in college football that can do what he just did. And then a few plays later, sometimes he'll do something that's like jaw dropped. How did that just happen? The question I have is more so it kind of like, I guess, symbiotic for both of them, right? Like will Sellers be able to thrive in this offense or be closer to 2024 form? And the other side of that is the offense actually going to be more catered to him? I don't even have an opinion on whether it should be at this point. I mean, I do, but I'm not as concerned of, are they going to run him a lot? Are they going to do are they going to make sure we have all like RPOs and all these things to get him on the edge and like blah, blah, blah. I just want them to score points, get a bunch of yards and win games. That's it. I don't care to get into all the frustrations of play calling in the red zone like we had last year and all this other stuff. I just need them to go win games. Can you tell me that they are going to be able to go win games with the offense that you are going to put around LaNorris and the offense that you're going to put at his hands with the play calls and all kind of stuff? And I have way more, probably about the same amount of of question and can't wait to find out about the coaching staff with that and that relationship part with LaNorris as I do with LaNorris and how good he is going to be in this offense. So that's the first one. The second one's pretty easy, guys. It is pretty easy. The offensive line, is it actually going to improve? Because we've made a joke out of it at this point. I've maintained like, well, it can't get any worse. And somehow it seems to always get worse. I want to know if there are, like, I mean, it's a complete overhaul. The entire unit is completely new. You have lost 8 or 9 guys in the portal. You brought in 8 or 9 back. I don't know what the exchange rate is. I will tell you right now that I've had this conversation with several people around the SEC at different stops that just like aren't as tapped into South Carolina because they don't need to be right now because it's the offseason. But, you see somebody like Trevon Baugh going to A&M and he's going to get paid to go to A&M and he's probably going to start at A&M. And then you see he's leaving South Carolina and Case and Henry, their highest ranked PFF right or offensive lineman, the right tackle, even though they only played 4 games, he's leaving. And who did they bring in? Oh God, they got a JUCO kid. They got a kid from Division II. They brought in like all these no-name guys. And by the way, Jakari's Peak. So there's like a surface level assumption that South Carolina might have lost the exchange rate, the currency exchange there for offensive linemen, and they might not be good again. I don't think that's the case. Trevon Baugh he graded out as a 16.4 in one game against LSU. I will never let that go. But my main point is you still are going to have concerns. The bar is so embarrassingly low for this position at South Carolina. It should not be like this. It should not be like this. And that's where they are, and that you have to accept it. And that's where they've been for the past 3 years. The bar is embarrassingly low. So there are concerns in every year. It's like, well, I don't know. They brought in a kid from Division II. Is he going to be able to, go up against guys from the SEC? They brought in, even you think about the way that we phrase stuff and frame stuff around this conference, especially. But almost always there's a conversation about, well, are they going to be able to do that? They might have been good in this conference. They might have been good for this team. Are they going to be able to do that in the SEC? And you have to make that answer, for guys that are playing JUCO, Division II, and Group of 5 or Group of 6 schools on this roster. You also have several guys you brought from the Power 4. That's still a question. It's like, well, I don't know. They played in the Big 12, played in the Big 10. Like, is that like for Purdue? Is that going to translate into this conference? Again, I don't know the answer to that yet. I do love the fact that they were so consistent with who the starters were. And them, openly saying we're trying to find like the right 8 guys or so that we could rotate in there. It feels like you had way more answers to the makeup of the offensive line and what the starting offensive line is going to look like than I thought we would. I mean, like they were running with like the ones that they put out there. And they moved Surratt around, but like other than that, it felt like they knew what they want to do across the offensive line in terms of like who the starting 5 are going to be. And it felt like they knew that before practice was even halfway over. Like it felt like that was found out very quickly. And that's great. That's great. But still, is it going to be different than it has been? Because we have seen a ton of turnover. We've seen times when they've had returning starters. We've seen when they brought in a guy like Josiah Thompson, who's a top 50 recruit. And if you remember this in 2024, he was the highest NIL valuation on your roster. He was the most valuable from a financial standpoint player on your roster. But we've seen all these different solutions, we thought, or attempted solutions at fixing the problem, and none of them worked. So I am asking once again, as calmly as possible, I don't need you to win the Joe Moore Award. I don't need you to not give up any sacks. I assume you're going to at some point. I just need you to take a step forward. And I also want to know that when it's 3rd and 2, you can be confident enough that if we want to run the football for a first down, we have that option. So that is the other one. And then last but not least, it almost feels like a cop-out. When I was going through prepping for the show, because I actually prepped for the show this time. There you go. Look at me being professional. But I didn't want to only have questions about the team on offense. And then as I was like kind of thinking through that, like I don't want to also just say, well, I don't want to have only offensive questions, so we'll just ditch that and make up something that I don't think is important. And also, let's be frank, the side of the ball that has the least amount of questions every single year has been the defense. So I think it's fair to say, especially after what we saw last year, I'm not worried about the production level necessarily of the running back room. I think that they will find the combination of guys. I don't think it's be one person. I think they'll find a combination of guys that will be able to be effective in the run game and make that part of the offense where it's not just on LaNorris. It's something that they can actually rely on to an extent. And it will not be a imbalance on offense because you have to throw because you are like incapable of running the football. I think they'll be fine there. Who's going to do it? Like who is going to try out there in game one and be the guy? And then who's going to be behind him? Because in the offseason, you brought in 6 new guys. Like, I mean, they just kept bringing in players. They kept bringing in players. And so I wonder which ones are going to actually separate themselves in terms of playing time, for one. And is it going to be like a running back by committee? Is it going to be something where you see one player get like the lion's share of the what do you call it? The attempts and carries, all that kind of stuff? Like, what is that going to look like? So more importantly, and I think this also has to do with not just the running back position, but also this just from the skill player standpoint, who is going to be the guy that you feel like you can depend on as like your offensive weapon? And hear me out when I say this. We could do a whole show on this. I love Jaden Sellers. It can't be Jaden Sellers. It can't just be like, it was cool to see him, kind of emerge as a really, really good player for them last year. But it was also like, man, where is everyone? Like it can't just be Jaden Sellers. And it also can't just be Nick Harbor, right? The guys that we thought we were going to be able to depend on last season. Mazio Bennett just disappeared. Jared Brown kind of disappeared. There were moments where it was like, the freshman class didn't contribute nearly as much as I thought, but there wasn't really a ton of guys that even the year before, like you had, Dravius Jacobs had some good moments, but there were moments the year before where you had, like someone emerge in specific games, like becoming a hero in the Mizzou game, especially, right? Like Daleon Campbell, they don't win that game without him. Like we didn't see that at all, like across the board on the offense from a skill position unit. It wasn't Rasul Faison. It wasn't any of the other running backs. It was you could make the argument that outside of the first half at College Station, when, I think he hit Harbor for 2 touchdowns in that half, what was the highlight of the year offensively? Besides the first drive of the season, it might have been, Fuller's 72-yard run against LSU, but I just need to know who is going to be there. Like who is going to be present when called upon for like not just in the big moments, but like I need to know. It felt like a lot of times like last year. This is like metaphorically speaking, but this is what like I visualize it looking like. It's like you're going into something and you're like, all right, you guys are behind me, cool. Like I'll just call you up here and run you in there. And like when they needed someone to step up and do something, like, hey, you're the guy, you're the guy for the job. It's like you turn around like no one's there. It's like, where the hell did y'all just go? We've been here. You've been great in practice all week. Where the hell did you go? Like you were great last year. Where the hell did you go? And so a lot of times it just felt like there was so many pieces that we thought like would have been able to contribute or be further along or whatever. And it felt like I'm getting depressed just talking about it last year. It felt like so much of last season offensively, there was so little to be confident in or even enjoy watching, right? For real, like Faison was okay, but he was not anywhere close to what we thought he was going to be. And there were moments, like there were moments when you would have, Sellers hit Harbor, I think of that 3rd and 39, like where it's like, but you've also, the only reason like that was such an incredible moment and accomplishment, even though they didn't get the first down, was look what he did on 3rd and 36. Well, how the hell did you get to 3rd and 36? And how come it's like so much of last year, it was like, unless we can hit Harbor on a go route, we do not have a semblance of a passing game. So I want to know like who is going to be in the rotation. If it's 1 to 3 guys, great. If it's Harbor going off for 1,000 yards, or if it's somebody else, Nitro Tuggle doing that, awesome. But who's going to be dependable on third downs? Who's going to be open on third downs? Who is going to be able to come out there and say, like, I want to go, I will go win us this football game? Because you didn't have that. You barely had that in terms of, I will go out and get us a first down. I will go out and get us positive yardage last year at times. So I think there's so much talent, like genuine talent on this offensive, on the offensive side of the ball this year. Like I think Nitro Tuggle is a really, really good player. Could be a very special player. Obviously, we talk about Nick Harbor all the time. I think the world of him too. There's all the freshmen. There's so many guys that I know are talented. You do too. But who is actually going to be the one that like gets it and steps up and is able to go win us games? Because we never got that answer last year. And it was so weird because you thought going into the season, there were so many potential answers and backup plans, and it just never worked. So how do you, who is going to be able to replace that and actually be that person this year? That is our third and final one. All right. That is all for today's episode. I appreciate you guys tuning in. Make sure you have a great rest of your Saturday. It is, actually, hold on. We have one more thing. Just reminded. Because this week, it's tax time. For a lot of us, the old way of doing taxes is a lot. Trying to book an appointment, it's not the most convenient. Sitting in a waiting room with all your papers, emailing back and forth, wondering if they really get your situation. But this year, you're getting a major, major upgrade. Intuit TurboTax now has in-person locations nationwide. You can meet face-to-face with a real tax expert. Your documents get uploaded straight to your TurboTax app on the spot. And just like that, you are done. Your TurboTax expert works to get you every dollar you deserve while you get real-time notifications as you go about your day. It's that simple. It's the relief of walking in, meeting a real person, walking out knowing your taxes are being handled right. Head to TurboTax.com/local to find a store near you. All right, the plan for this week as well. We have a lot of good shows coming up. I'm hoping that we're going to have some sort of something to talk about from the basketball transfer portal. There's been multiple guys that they are targeting. They did get their first commit, obviously, earlier. I think it was on Thursday or Friday. So that has been good. And also, there's no need for that to be a concern. Across the board in the SEC, there's been almost no activity in terms of talent and players being brought in. I think as of this morning, Sunday morning, there were, what was the total? I think there were 7 total in the 7 total players across the entire conference that have been brought into the portal. So almost everyone is sitting at 0. So not anything's out of the ordinary there. But hopefully we'll have more to report for that, and also for women's basketball as well. And that's about it. So until next time, you guys be good to each other, be safe, go Cox.